Hello everyone and welcome to the Andy Wilkins Podcast with yours truly, Andy Wilkins. This is episode 1, 2021, already is a mess, where I've got 6 subjects and I'm going to be talking about what I feel about 6 subjects that I've written down as topics for the next potential hour. So please sit back, relax and enjoy. If you are new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe and like to the channel. We are hoping to do more content over the next couple of days, weeks, months, etc. Helps that I am actually in lockdown, but more about that in the next few minutes. So please sit back, relax and enjoy. Okay, so we are here. It's Monday the 11th of January 2021 and this is technically our 3rd week in 2021, even though officially it's our 2nd full week of the year. I was going to say, in all fairness, it's been a weird sort of new year for me in lockdown. For those that know or may not know, we went into a full lockdown last Monday. Happy New Year, Britain. Let's go into a full lockdown. But the thing is, I don't genuinely feel like as if it has been a massive change. Well, except for me, obviously. But I've noticed so many people are still out and about. For those that don't know, I live around Southend. Well, I live in the area of Southend, which is in Essex. We're about 35 miles off from central London. But the thing is, it's like, apparently, I've had friends of mine who have contacted me and they said, look, there's people coming from, say, God knows where, we've had people come all the way from Brentwood down into Southend because they want to see the beach and, they want to take their dogs for walks and stuff like that. My brother, he's still working. He works in a, what do you want to call it? He works in retail furniture outlet place, which is, he does enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, but the thing is, essentially, he is not an essential worker. My dad, on the other hand, he's a delivery records driver. So, for example, he's been driving to drop off hospital records and bits and bobs like that. I deem my dad more as an essential driver because obviously medical records and all that are vital for hospitals. So he's driving to literally places, all around the M25, Southend Hospital, etc. And the thing is, it's like, my dad I deem as an essential worker. My brother, not so much. But for me, I am in lockdown because of university. For those, again, that don't know, I'm at university. I'm studying at the University of East London. I have been since 2018. However, at the end of the day, I've spent the last year basically doing lectures at home with the odd 1 or 2 lessons in East London. So for me, it has felt like lockdown, especially with the fact that I'm no longer at football anymore because, again, football's been cancelled because of lockdown. Yet again, it's a little bit like I'm literally spending all my time at home. So, not that I'm saying it's an issue, but because it's like, for example, I've spent out money on this, Doctor Who DVDs. Prior to obviously recording this, I was watching one of my new DVDs because, again, I've got the money on it. Is it going to change us being in lockdown? I really don't know because it's like just everything in general. I really don't know right now. I really don't know. The cases are continuing to go up. Just times are tough. Times are tough. But obviously, at the end of the day, you have to try and keep your head up. You have to try and keep going. During the first lockdown, like the March lockdown that we went through, I was waking up and I was just like, what's the point of me sort of waking up to an extent? And I think as well, when you're in a lockdown, it does drain you mentally because it's like I've stuck to the rules. I've done everything I've had to do, but then I know so many people who have broken the rules. They wanted to see their friends, and things like that. It's all things like that. But yeah, to be honest, I did nothing for New Year's. Like everyone shouldn't have done anything for New Year's, but I did nothing for it because I thought, okay, I can't really be bothered to do anything. And I must admit, I'm not a fan of New Year's. I'm like, 2020 was a rotten year. And for me in particular, I didn't feel as if I got started. Like, by the time I was starting to slowly find my groove, it was a bit like too little too late in that sense. That's how I felt about it. But obviously, cases are continuing to go up. But the thing is, it's not just here, it's all over the place. But then what annoys me is that you have some people who just don't want to bother with the rules. You go onto the local Facebook pages or whatever, like our local sort of press outlet, Yes Execo. You go onto a Facebook post and you have all these people going, "Oh, I don't consent to having a vaccine done and everything." But the thing is, I do want to talk about all this vaccine stuff because obviously it's good that we are now starting to get the vaccine sorted, and people are starting to have it. However, what I don't get, and I don't know if this is just me being me, but with the vaccine stuff, obviously it's good news that, oh look, we've got the vaccine coming. But I've never seen so much anti-vaccine sort of objection in my lifetime before. Like when I was at school, I had vaccines done. I had my polio, I had my tetanus, I had all them like vaccines that you get injected into you. But the thing is, I've never seen so much resistance. But then, weirdly enough, some of the historical aspect to it is that basically people are saying, oh yeah, it's like the thalidomide situation. Now, for those that may or may not know, the thalidomide situation happened back in the 50s and the 60s. Basically, there was a German pharmaceutical company. They created a drug that was given to mothers to help with morning sickness. But the thing is, it ended up basically, it ended up being quite damaging, with babies being born without limbs, some being born blind, all sorts. It was a nasty sort of issue. And the thing is, when it came out, oh look, there are kids being born without limbs and everything, it was a huge scandal. But the thing is, and in fairness, there are still survivors from the thalidomide outbreak. And ironically, I actually did my GCSE drama piece. We did, my GCSE drama, sort of final piece, we did about thalidomide, in fairness. Because it was sort of, we learned a lot about it, in fairness. I played a doctor who had to tell a mother that her son would never walk again, for example. All that sort of stuff. But, that sort of stuff. So I've always been aware of the thalidomide sort of scandal that happened to that degree. However, I've never seen so much objection to a vaccine that could hopefully save our lives. It's quite baffling, in all fairness, for me. I'll be the first to admit, I can't wait to have my vaccine done, because I look at it personally on the narrative of, once the vaccine is done, it means my life can somewhat go back to normal, in that sense. Not that I ever think that life will be back to what it was back in 2019 normal. However, I do think to an extent it'll be a bit more normal than what, it wouldn't be, so to speak. Like, for example, I don't know about anyone else here, but I think when it comes to things like office jobs, people have learned, the big cities like London and so many other cities across the world have learned to a vast degree that you don't need to congregate everyone in one place. If you can sort of outsource your work to someone who lives a bit far away, they will do it. And I think in particular, we will see the traditional sort of city office job change to potentially being a remote job, so to speak, which in all due respect will help people's well-being, but it will mean that they will lose their social interaction by some proportion. Because I'll be the first to admit, I would sort, I'll talk about my personal experiences of working and learning in a little bit, because I've managed to work that as a topic for today's podcast. But the thing is, I do think the traditional London office is gone, so to speak, and when we are allowed to return properly and fully, it will be a lot more different, and to think that it will, for some of us, it will be a new world. I must admit already, I'm already feeling, when the time does come that, oh look, I can be part of a crowd that I can be part of a 6,000-7,000 strong crowd to go and see a game of football, or even 90,000 people off to see England at Wembley. It's going to feel weird, because I've not been in that situation for over a year now, if not potentially 18 months by the time it comes along. But it's a weird situation, no doubt. But, obviously I'm hoping that we'll get out of this soon, because obviously, first things obviously first, you've got to remember those who have lost loved ones during this whole last year. The last year has just been horrendous. 2021 to me already feels a bit of a mess, and it doesn't feel as bad to an extent as what last year was by any means yet. But, we're only 11th of January. Things can still go downhill quite badly between now and, obviously, New Year's Eve 2021 by all accounts. But I'm hoping that by the time the spring comes along in, say, March, April time, things will be a bit better. That's what I'm hoping for, really. But I'm now going to sort of weirdly segue onto Trump and America, because this really caught my eye and it sort of really annoyed me. So last week, Donald Trump and a load of his sort of people were continuing their all-out fight for, there was electoral fraud and all that stuff going on. And please note, I say this as a relative centralist. When I say this, I view myself as a centralist when it comes to politics, because I have both economic views that are deemed as conservative, like, for example, low taxes and low taxation in general. But then I also have very strong liberal views, like equal rights and bits and bobs like that, really. But the thing is, like with any election, I have respected the outcome, because I feel personally, as a member of the public who votes, he votes for who he feels is the best person. I respect the wishes of the electorate. So if that means the person who I voted for doesn't get voted into whatever it is I've voted for, I ultimately do respect that wish. Because, it's just being human to respect one's wish. But lo and behold, you've had all this stuff go along with all this violence of Trump supporters storming the US Capitol. And the thing is, it really did sort of annoy me how such an outgoing president can leave such a nasty taste in people's mouths. Because, alright, so here's the situation, and obviously I'm a Brit. For me in particular, I don't expect, to know the ins and outs of American politics like I do with, say, UK politics, or even Westminster politics. But the thing is, surely, if you lose an election, surely either, first things first, depending on how bad you've lost, you distance yourself as a party from the person that has lost in the first place. That is what many political parties have done in the years gone by. That's, it's a bit like a sort of it's the truth sort of thing. Like when you've seen, for example, look at the way, for example, how biggest sort of example I saw was how, for example, Jo Swinson lost her seat in the 2019 general election. In the 2019 general election, she was the Lib Dem leader. She was immediately sort of forced to resign. She was immediately forced to resign as leader because of she'd lost her seat, and then the party sort of distanced themselves away from her. I think, in fairness, they have distanced a little bit. Obviously, they're still remaining as we still want to join the EU stuff, but then ultimately, I don't expect any different from the Lib Dems. But the thing is, in the same way that when Ed Miliband lost the election, I think it was 2015 election, I think it was. Again, when he lost that election, again, the Labour Party distanced themselves. Things like that. Obviously it's gone a little bit different in recent years. But then look at the way, for example, how Jeremy Corbyn sort of distanced himself to an extent. Obviously, he didn't give up being leader of Labour until about March last year. But again, the Labour Party worked to distance themselves from my perspective of it. It looked like as if they were starting to distance themselves. The Republican Party haven't done that with Trump. And this is the thing, a lot of them are still maintaining, Trump was the best person for them. Realistically speaking, like the last election in 2016, to me, Trump against Biden was like picking who is the least worst candidate person. That's how I see it anyway. Because obviously, I get that, people like what both offer. But I did sort of think, you know what? Biden has been in politics all his life. Trump came in around as a sort of anti-establishment figure. And the thing is, a lot of people have said this about Trump. People still don't know what Trump is capable of. All we do know what he was capable of was sending threats to North Korea on Twitter. That was about all we did know. and that he did like a good old tweet before Twitter obviously banned him permanently for good last week. But it's an utterly weird situation, and it annoyed me knowing that such a thing would happen. Oh, let's storm the US Capitol. Let's scare people who are trying to do their best for the people of the country they're paid to represent. It just annoyed me. The fact I think it's now like 5 or 6 people have died, including a few policemen. Like, why? Like, just because someone has a different opinion to them doesn't mean you have to be violent towards them. Like, sorry, there have been wars fought over the years for that sort of stuff, and yet you'd think we're in 2021. Move on from it. Lo and behold, actually, the inauguration for Joe Biden to become the 46th US president is actually next Wednesday, I think it is. Next Thursday, something like that. And in fairness, the fact that Trump has said that he won't attend in the inauguration, to me actually spells a little bit like, you know what, you're being a real sore loser now. Whether there was electoral fraud or not, you're being a sore loser. You know, if you know there was cases of electoral fraud, then showcase it to the electorate, showcase it to the authorities, showcase it to the courts. But the fact is, all I have seen was, oh, there was electoral fraud, and he just tweeted about it. He didn't actually show the proof of it. And whether he has got lawyers on about it or not, I don't know. I really couldn't care less. But there is half of me thinking, apparently the Trump administration haven't been helping the Biden administration with sort of easing the adjustment from one administration to the other, which again just makes me think, why? Because, you know, ideally, you know, I credit where it's due here. I think from my recollection here, the Barack Obama administration actually did sort of did actually help the Trump administration, because obviously the Trump administration were planning this massive overhaul of, oh, let's scrap Obamacare, let's do this, let's do that. But the thing is, Trump came in at a time when anti-establishment politics was really rife. And I don't think we will ever see a time where, like, for example, we had the rise of UKIP back when Trump was rising as a candidate. Like, for us in the UK, UKIP are, like, long gone. Like, literally, they're the most irrelevant party going now in the UK. But it's just horrendous. It really is horrendous to think that 2014, 2015, 2013 to an extent, you had this rise of anti-establishment. You had this rise of Euroscepticism. In fairness, Euroscepticism is slowly rising. Don't get me wrong. If you look around Europe, if you like look a bit deeper than what is just being said by the heads of states, like the presidents, the prime ministers, etc., there is a wave of anti-establishment and a wave of Euroscepticism rising across the whole of like Europe, etc. But it's crazy. It's utterly crazy. But seriously, I saw the tweets about the US Capitol being, I say, raided. I think, is that the correct term? Being raided. But you know, it was just, you know, all these Trump supporters descending on the US Capitol. It just made me think, I don't believe this. I really don't believe this. It upsets me to an extent that people want to be so anti-democratic like that, but then ultimately, I don't expect any different. Like, you know, people were taking the mick out of the UK for voting for Brexit, but yet lo and behold, you know, America in 2016 went, hold my beer, I'm gonna do worse. And even I'll admit here, Trump has been a mess of a president. You know, everything, and I get the fact that the media have tried to portray him in a bad image, and apparently I saw one post several years ago during Trump's early days, apparently how the stock market had risen good and how the economy had risen good for the USA. But apart from that, you know, that's economics for you, you know, but, you know, you look at the amount of violence that's gone on in America, everything else has been a mess. You look at equal rights, I think in fairness, equal rights have probably gone downhill in America during Trump's time as president. Then, you know, you had Barack Obama who built up a lot of foundations for future presidents to build on, and you just have Trump who goes, "Oh, I'm gonna smash it like a bowling alley," to that extent of, okay, we're gonna build up these foundations. Trump just goes, "Nah, let's smack it all away." And I don't, to be honest, I don't know much about US politics. I really don't. However, from a British perspective, it's not a pretty sight. It really isn't a pretty sight. But hey ho, hoping personally that Biden administration is a lot better. Hoping that just things are a lot better for the people in America, because they've been through a bit of a mess the last couple of years. I think realistically, whether you agree with Biden, whether you don't agree with Biden, America needs some good politicians to actually sort of bring them out of the dirt a little bit, because it's clear when you've got a president and vice president like Trump and Pence, you can do better. Not that I'm saying that Hillary could have been any better than Trump had she won, but I don't think she would have done half the mess that Trump created during his 4 years in office. But then I, for one, I'm going to sound quite sort of comedic when I say this, I, for one, personally would have welcomed Kanye West being the president. But then there is talks, apparently Kanye West might actually step in and become president. He's going to try and push for being president in 2024, which, if that is the case, I will welcome it. No, seriously, I would actually welcome Kanye West being president over Donald Trump any day of the week. But then, in fairness, I'd welcome any celebrity that goes for it. Obviously, we've seen Donald Trump, who was technically a celebrity, come up and go, I want to go into politics. And yeah, I think people would sort of have to, I think people would be underestimating Kanye a little bit, but ultimately it's one of them things. Bring on the West campaign 2024. Honestly, that'd be a good one. Because ironically, in 2026, the US, Mexico and Canada are all set to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So it would make sense for President Kanye West to open up the 2026 FIFA World Cup opening ceremony, wherever that first game is being held at. It would be brilliant. I really, that, in fairness, that's going to be a class World Cup in 2026. And also, in fairness, it should be taking place in the June-July, like normal. Whereas we've got the World Cup in Qatar next year, and that's being held next November into next December. Whether there will be fans going to it or not, I don't know. But talking about football, yeah, I real proper segued into that. I'm really gassed with that. And I did about a 12-minute segment about Trump and America. So hopefully I won't be talking about Trump next week. Hopefully you will have shut up. But yeah, moving on to football whilst talking about the World Cup. Non-league football, the FA, Football Association, are apparently making plans to basically null and void everything from steps 3 to 6 and below because of lockdown. This sort of segues back to the new year in lockdown and how I mentioned, football has been cancelled for the time being. But the thing is, the FA deciding to null and void, it actually sits quite badly with not just myself but a lot of people, in fairness. We are actually getting a bit annoyed over this. The FA, yet again, proving that they do not give a damn about us. And it's actually quite annoying for me, because it's just, like, I've said this to a few people, I put so much time and effort into this season and last season that I'm actually just a little bit fed up over it, if being truthfully honest. I really am quite fed up over it. The FA, in my opinion, are a bunch of old boys. And the thing is, you only have to take a look at who the representatives are. 9 times out of 10, they are old boys who don't know what it's like, who don't know what it feels like to stand on a freezing cold football pitch with one stand and 10 people on a freezing cold Saturday afternoon. They don't know what it feels like. Instead, what they do know is what it's like to have prawn sandwiches at Wembley Stadium for a cup final at half time, or any cup final in general, or They know what it's like to go to Tottenham or Man United or Arsenal or Chelsea because they get the best seats in the house because they're the FA. But no, seriously, I'm losing a lot of time and patience for the FA because it feels like as if they don't give a damn about us. For those that may or may not know, I'm involved with Southend Manor and we play in the Essex Senior League. So for me, the thing is, null and void in the season last year was in my opinion a chicken's way out, because like people have said, points per game was ultimately the better way forward because null and voiding rewarded failure, and I keep saying this, and I will keep saying this. And I'm not singling them out, but I'm just going to single them. But I'm sort of going to single them out as a prime example here. A team in our league, Sorbo Town, only gained 8 points from 28 games last season. Now, on paper, anyone would have thought they deserve to go down because 8 points from 28 is not good reading at all. However, at the end of the day, whilst they obviously avoided being relegated, which, you know, for them they'll take, because obviously there comes a loss of income, loss of finances if you do get relegated from any league. Ultimately, they deserved to be relegated, because if you've only gained 8 points, then surely, you know, just working out the maths. In fact, here is the thing actually. Sorbo had 8 points from 28 games, you see. However, the next worst team was Tower Hamlets with 22 points from 27. So in fairness here, whilst we had about 8 more games left to play, and yes, to an extent, Sorbo weren't ultimately relegated at the time of the season being ended, which was 11th of March 2020, it was still enough for the season. Like they would have had a massive climb to go, okay, we can end the season like this. We can end, you know, because in fairness, I doubt Sorbo would have got enough points to overcome Tower Hamlets, Southend Manor, Enfield, Sporting Bengal, St Margaret's-Bury, let alone Ilford. Personally, that is what I feel. In fairness, I don't even think they would have had enough points to catch Ilford, who were on 30 points in fairness. But again, what do I know? But that's the situation there. It's a mess of a situation, but yet again, the FA are proving that they do not care about us. By all means, they have allowed non-league teams in the FA Cup to continue participating. I get that. But then what they have also created a diverse criticism of is what is elite and what isn't. Because so now in non-league football, Steps 1 and 2, the National League North and South, are now deemed as elite football, alongside that of the Premier League, Championship, League 1 and League 2. But yet, anything below Steps 3, 4, 5 and 6, so that includes the Isthmian League, Southern Premier League, Northern Premier League, all the county leagues like the Wessex Senior League, the Hampshire Senior League, the North West Counties Football League, the Essex Senior League, all of that is just being proposed. Okay, why don't we just completely cancel the season? So not just we've had one season completely cancelled, but we've had a complete another one being cancelled. And I think that's what is annoying a lot of us, because a lot of people are now actually saying, why don't we do it that we have the 2 seasons merged together to create an ultimate points per game sort of table across the 2 seasons? Yeah, that there will be some winners and there will obviously be some losers in this, but it would make more sense. And in fairness as well, I actually looked at it on Twitter the other day actually, and in all fairness here, if I can quickly find it. Alright, so here's the thing he said. Looking at the combined points per game, someone has actually done this, and I will have this up like in front of this. It has it here that hashtag would be going up with a combined total of 96 points. Walthamstow joining them with 90 points, and that is over combined amount of 2 seasons. Sorbo Town would be going down as a result of the points per game, because they have 0.47. That is what they've got. And in fairness as well, credit here where it's due as well, they have played one more game played. They have done one more game played. despite having played less games in 2019-20 than them for some reason. But yeah, they have actually played more games than obviously Tower Hamlets did, because obviously Tower Hamlets got moved into the Kent South East Counties League. Sorbo would still be going down to an extent. So that's the sort of thing that would be going on. In third place would be Hadley, fourth would be Saffron Walden, fifth would be Cockfosses, and sixth would be Stansted, who I all believe would be subject to potential promotions if that did go ahead. Now, I see no issues with that at all. I really see no issues. But, that's just me being me at the end of the day. That is just me being me. But, yeah, hey ho. Do I feel like the FA are letting us down? Yeah, I do. Because, and I don't know if this is just me being me when I say this, but what's annoying me most of all right now is that we have had no support from the FA. From the main national FA. We've had no support from the Essex FA, or I doubt many clubs have had any support from any of their local FAs. By all means, they say about, we only, for example, my FA are the same. They keep on going on about, we run all these great things. And yeah, I get the emails from the county FA, from this big week or whatever. They're going, please note we are doing our best to support you and everything. To me, it doesn't feel like enough. And this is going to sound nasty here. Southend Manor lost 20 home games worth of income. In fact, no, sorry, my bad. We lost 20 games last year in 2020 because of COVID. The FA didn't go, okay, you've lost out on, I think it was about 15 games of home income. I think it was about 10, 15 games we lost out on home income. The FA haven't gone to us, here is the money that you lot would have lost. They haven't done that. And that's what annoys me most of all here. The FA haven't done anything of the sort. And that's what sort of irritates me most of all here. They haven't gone, oh look, here you go. They've just gone, the season's been cancelled, that's it. No more for you this season. See you all next season. Like as if this season never started. What annoys me most of all as well is that you had people starting the season, starting for pre-season in say June of 2019. They were doing pre-season in June 2019, if not even starting even earlier than that in say May. So you have all that stuff going on. June being the primary month when teams start pre-season, etc. July is when you have pre-season friendlies. So then from July through to March, you have a mixture of stuff going on. Pitch postponements. You're about 7-8 months into the season at least, if not even 9 to an extent, depending when it actually started. Only to be told, with less than 3 months to go before the season is due to end, your season, all that hard work in June of 2019, getting to pre-season training and all that sort of stuff, that's just gone. We're not going to count it anymore because we now deem it to be null and voided, etc. Imagine just that sort of mindset, thinking that you get to March and you're there going, okay, I've got less than 2 months left and then I'm off for the summer. No more football for the season. We're nearly there. Some teams barely had a couple of games left, but yet only to be told, oh no, just let you folks know your season's now been ended. Whether you like it or not, it's been ended, and we're not counting any promotions or relegations because we are like that. It's just baffling. It really is just baffling. It really, really is, and it annoys me so much. And the thing is, I've said this so many times. How many of these big wigs from the FA have actually turned up to a non-league game? How many of them have actually gone down to see two teams, like two village teams, who barely pick up one man and his dog through the gate? How many of them have been down there to see proper grassroots football taking place? Because I doubt it's many of them. There's meant to be so many FA Council members or whatever, or big wigs, who are meant to be representing the game's interest. Where are they? Because I don't know them. They don't show themselves out to be, oh, I'm here, I'm at this game. If you've got any issues with the FA or any things that you'd like me to clarify on, please come and see me at this game. They're nowhere to be seen. And I will say this now, and I'll say this all the time. The FA needs shaking up. It needs people who are going to represent its best interests, who are going to represent the game's best interests. You need people who know what it's like to freeze themselves silly watching a game in the middle of nowhere, because that is what those sort of people matter. The clubs who barely get one man and his dog through the gate need that support. Because let's be honest here, for a town of Southend, we've got 180,000 as a population. We barely get 50, 60, 70 people sometimes. If we're lucky, we get over 100 once or twice a season, if not less than that. But where is the support from the FA to go, okay, we can help you trying to get bigger attendances? Unless we get a massive cup run in the FA Cup or the FA Vase, people don't want to know. So how do you help us? Because there is no support. There was no financial support. By all means, the government were giving out little small grants and everything, but where were the FAs? The FA are sitting on enough cash as it is, but then what annoys me most of all is that they then decided to cut the prize money for the FA Cup and the FA Vase and the FA Trophy because they were making losses. Like as if non-league football clubs weren't making enough losses. It's just horrendous. The FA showed ultimately that they don't give a toss about us folk in non-league. They don't give a toss about any of us, being quite truthfully honest. And it really annoys me because I'll be honest here, I am so close to walking away from football right now because of it's such a bad situation. And I am so close because I can't even explain. I really can't explain. When you're being told all that hard work and effort is being threatened by being null and voided once again, it just makes me want to go, you know what, screw this, I'm off. I'm out of here. Because I'm genuinely like that. I'm genuinely with that mindset. And to be honest, I've done a number of years. I've done about 6-7 years in football. I've learned a lot. I've done a lot. I've seen a lot. But when you've got big wigs at Wembley Stadium making all the decisions, going, okay, let's null and void the season. Let's not actually get the consultation from anyone. Let's not consult the clubs and see what they want to do first. No, let's just go ahead. And if we screw some over, we screw some over. If a few of them fold, that's fine. We don't care. For every club that folds from last year through to the end of this year, during this lockdown, during all this COVID uncertainty, it's another club that is on the FA's hands, that is on the FA's watch. But the FA don't care. They really don't care. And it annoys me, it upsets me, and I think realistically I'm just getting really, really quite fed up over it. But anyway, I've got to stop going on about football because I've been talking about it for about the last 10-15 minutes at least. I think I've overrun a little bit. But yeah, sorry about that. The FA are annoying me in there, and I'll be honest with you here, it's not the people, it's more the fact that it's the big wigs in the FA that are making me really consider whether I really want to spend next season in football or not. Because right now, I could happily go, you know what, screw this, I'm out of here, and I could. But whether I will or not, who knows. Okay, so I'm now going to move on to Doctor Who, my favourite TV show, obviously. Doctor Who has been in the news, not just over a few things, but I want to talk primarily on the New Year's Day special, Revolution of the Daleks. Apparently, 4.69 million people tuned in overnight to watch the episode, and it is down from 5.15 million viewers who tuned in overnight to watch the New Year's Day 2019 story Resolution, which also featured the Daleks. This basically means that Revolution of the Daleks is now the worst viewed overnight scene Doctor Who special of its type, basically. And as much as I can laugh and sit back and laugh at how bad it's got, it is a concern, no doubt, because in case you hadn't wondered, the show's viewing figures are actually down by a considerable amount, and you know what? It's getting a bit concerning now. It really, really is. The fact that the show has now, the show is now dwindling beyond anything, because just it's getting worse and worse. Basically, the fact that viewing figures have now got beyond anything ever thought or seen. It's horrendous. Basically, the one thing that the show has done many times is that it has an average of viewership. Now here's the thing for you. Series 11 pulled in 7.96 million viewers. Okay, so here's the thing you see. So we have got Series 11, which pulled in 7.96 million viewers. Series 12 pulled in 5.40 million, of which, if you look beyond that as well, you'll see that Spyfall only managed 6.89 million views. And I just need to clarify here, that includes everything. That includes legitimately everything that has gone on. So, for example, that includes all of the overnight figures, everything from online, etc. So that's a combined amount. So all in all, just under 7 million viewers tuned in. However, if you then look on here, it says 4.90 for Can You Hear Me? That was the combined amount as well. That is legitimately the combined amount. It's getting beyond dreadful now for the show, and if being truthfully honest with you, I'm sort of losing my interest in the show. But the fact is, quite literally here, it's getting to become a bit of a joke. The fact that 6.2, well, it's actually saying here now that 6.25 million, that is overnight. But it's getting to a point where it's just getting bad now. Like, it's saying here 6.25, but my source is obviously the overnight viewings that I'm saying. It's horrendous. It is horrendous. The fact that so many people are talking about it now. 4.69 million people viewed it overnight, whilst the fact that 5.15 million watched Resolution, it's a concern. It is a massive concern. Now, ultimately, Doctor Who News reported 7.13 million people watched it, I believe. But the fact is, though, the show has lost 500,000 viewers from Resolution to Revolution of the Daleks. Now, I'm not saying... Now, comparing the overnight figures of Revolution of the Daleks to the full numbers of Resolution, it's a total decrease of 2.44 million viewers and a 34% loss in viewership. That is according to Bounding into Comics. And it's true. It is an absolute mess of a situation. And ironically, Resolution was actually previously the least viewed holiday special in the history of Doctor Who. The previous Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time, which aired on Christmas Day 2017, was viewed by 7.92 million viewers and captured 34% of the total TV viewing audience. However, they also say, if you want to put a positive spin on these numbers, the overnight figures for Revolution of the Daleks match the Timeless Children's full numbers. The Timeless Children was the season. Well, it says here season 13, but it means season 12 finale, and the most recent Doctor Who episode before Revolution of the Daleks. The Timeless Children, on the other hand, had 4.69 million viewers, with a 21.5% share of the total viewing audience in the United Kingdom. I don't find Doctor Who enjoyable anymore. I'll be honest with you, I don't find it enjoyable. I've been a fan for the last 15, 16 years. I've sat through many good days, and I've obviously sat through many bad days watching the show. But will I be happy if Jodie leaves? No. Because, as I have said many times before, there's last week in particular, there was all these rumours coming out that Jodie is apparently set to leave Doctor Who at the end of Series 13, which would make sense. Because considering that Peter Capaldi did 3 seasons, Matt Smith technically did 3 seasons, David Tennant technically did 3 seasons, Sylvester McCoy, Peter Davison, Patrick Charlton, they've all done 3 seasons. Only a few have ever done more than 3 seasons, like Tom Baker, John Pertwee. Colin Baker only did 2 seasons, but it's a weird situation. And the fact is, normally for each Doctor Who actor, it normally comes across that 3 seasons is enough. However, unless you want to do a few audios, then obviously you can make more seasons than ever, as I have come to realise and learn, etc. Yeah, I really don't know anymore. It's the thing is as well, the show to me, it's lost its touch, and I think what hasn't helped is that the show has moved itself from being on a Saturday evening slot to a Sunday slot. Sundays have, in my opinion, ruined the show even more, because whilst the show had never done a Sunday slot before, it just, well, unless obviously if you're counting Christmas specials and whatnot, that have accidentally fallen into place on it, it's a weird one. I'm hoping Series 13 is a good series. I really am hoping it is a good series. It's a lot better, because I think as well what didn't help the show was that you had 3 companions, and whilst people were saying, 3 companions would be great, you always end up having 2 becoming part of the main action with the Doctor, and 1 is often cast aside. Whether you agree with that or disagree with it, it's always the case. Am I hoping the show will revert back to, say, a Saturday tea time slot? I don't know, because the fact is that the episodes are being reduced even further. We're being reduced from 10 episodes to 8 because of COVID. And we've also got John Bishop, who is set to feature as Dan. Not that we know anything about who Dan is or what he's about or anything. But, it's a weird situation right now. It really is a weird situation. I thought Revolution of the Daleks for itself, for a story, it was okay. It was relatively good. However, it could have been a lot better. It could have been a lot better. But it had a good premise. But then ironically, I've been listening to a few Doctor Who audio stories recently, and it reminded me of Blood of the Daleks. But am I hopeful Doctor Who will return back to being good? Hopefully. Who do I want to replace Jodie Whittaker if she is leaving at the end of Series 13? Well, for me, I've got a few. My preferred option is Robert Carlyle, or Adrian Lester. Now, I know Adrian Lester from Hustle, and again, he was really good in that. Robert Carlyle, I've only ever seen him in Hitler the Rise of Evil, where he obviously played Hitler. But the thing is, and I said this on Reddit, I said this on Reddit yesterday, is that with Carlyle, he was able to captivate the audience by sort of how well he played, like the presence he brought with him playing Hitler. And obviously, being Hitler, you have to be very careful with how you do play it. He managed to captivate the performance really well, of showing that Hitler was this nasty man, basically. That's how I saw it. I sat through that for GCSE history, and I've never quite forgotten sort of how good of a performance that was by Robert Carlyle, basically. In the same way, I've never forgotten how good Adrian Lester was in Hustle, basically. They are my 2 favourite options for taking over the Doctor. However, I wouldn't say no to Michael Sheen, I believe it is. And I wouldn't say no to, say, someone like Miranda Richardson or Tilda Swinton, if we're talking about female Doctors, because I do think, that'd be quite good. I like Miranda Richardson. I've sat through her stuff, but yeah, I'm always up to see who could take on the role of the Doctor. I've got a few preferred. Obviously, I wouldn't mind saying yes if I got ever given the opportunity, but I think we all know that day won't ever come. To be honest, if Jodie does leave, it'll be a shame, because it's like with a little bit with Peter Capaldi's era. If she'd been given really good scripts, then yeah, definitely she would have been fantastic. However, I think with her, she spent the whole of her first season not really knowing who she was. She then got to grips with who she was, only to be told about all that time as children stuff, and that just sort of ruined it to me. The thing is, I wanted to talk about my New Year's resolution, because obviously we're 11th of January. Obviously, you have to think of ideally, you like to think of a New Year's resolution, the first couple of days of the month, and first, 2nd of January, let's think of a New Year's resolution, if not even, before you even enter the new year. But the thing is, my New Year's resolution this year is quite a simple one. Not just I'm uploading more here on YouTube, but also I'm trying to sort of do a bit more in media. So, for example, creating content like this podcast, doing bits and bobs like this. So I do hope you are enjoying this, because for me, basically, here's the thing. I got myself a new gaming computer a few weeks, literally a couple of days before Christmas. And I basically said, okay, that's going to be my Christmas present from me to me, basically. That sounds really sad and veiny, but that was how it was. So I went, okay, I want to start streaming. And I've been saying throughout the whole of 2020, I want to start streaming. I want to start gaming. I want to start, enjoying myself, creating content that I can be proud of, because I like that sort of stuff. So then on Thursday last week, I finally set up Twitch. I finally set up my YouTube channel. I started to upload content. I downloaded OBS, things like that. So I'm like, okay, this now looks good. This now looks impressive. So the thing is, this has been a bit of a long-term project that I'm now starting to get off the ground. By no means is it going to be perfect within the next 1 or 2 days. I get that. I accept that, etc. However, I look at it as more, I can work with what I've got. That is the situation I am taking it as. I can work with what I've got, when I've got it, how I've got it, etc. But ultimately, that's the plan of mine, really. But yeah, that's probably one of the shortest segues I'm going to be talking about. But that's my New Year's resolution. Ironically, last year's New Year's resolution went out the window quite quickly because of COVID, which was to get back into a little bit of singing. Because for those who know me well, I do like to sing a little bit. However, I'm going to basically put that on hold till next year, really, because I can't imagine myself being able to do any sort of open mic like gigs or anything till next year, really. But in the meantime, streaming is what I like doing. I've just got to try and build up an audience. But I realise, like with anything, things do take time. Okay. We are now going into the final segue of this podcast. And it's going to be me talking about university and my education with lockdown. Because obviously I have opinions on university and lockdown, don't I? So, yeah, simple as really. University has been messed up massively by COVID. There is no beating around the bush with it. It's been so badly messed up, it's got annoying on all accounts. For me personally, there's no beating around the bush with it. There really is no beating around the bush with it. So I just want to quickly mention here that I have no issues with anyone wanting to better themselves or protest that they deserve for better pay. I have no issue with that. However, basically, I didn't start university last year in 2020 till about the 3rd or 4th week of January, of which immediately I had to deal with strikes by lecturers and the cleaners. Not that that's an issue, but it happened for about 4 or 5 weeks. Again, like myself, like many others, we respected the strikes because ultimately, at the end of the day, human beings, lecturers, they deserve a lot more support than what they do get, and that's as an aspiring teacher to those teachers, basically. That's how I see it, anyway. So for the first 4 or 5 weeks, we had these lectures go on, of which I didn't actually have a proper full week until about the final week of February, basically. Of which that was about 1 week of normality before, lo and behold, COVID came along and ruined everything. Of which I didn't go in the final week that I was due in. I didn't go in because I did go down with. I was in bed. I was in bed with some sort of flu, sort of like I was really ill, basically. I was really ill. I was bedridden, and in fact, the only time I was actually getting out of bed was to go to the toilet. Basically, that was how bad I got. I was just sleeping and watching telly and just really feeling really rubbish. Basically, that was how it was. I didn't eat for several days either. But the thing is, I didn't go in for the final week. But the thing is, by the time that was going on, COVID was starting to hit like the UK quite badly. And the thing is, we were left a bit like, this COVID, it won't hit us. It won't hit us. No, it hit us like nothing else, and it has hit us like nothing else. No being around the bush a bit. So then I think it was about March. Yeah, it was about mid. Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, it was about mid to late March that everything got sort of stopped. So literally our classes just stopped, like nothing, out of nowhere. So we got told, okay, please no, everything's stopping for the time being. And then I think it was about 2-3 weeks later, we then got told, just to let you know, you've all passed this year, So you lot will all go through. We were basically given special compensation or whatever. So it meant because of this unexpectedness, you've passed the year basically. So we were like, okay, that's fine. We'll take it, accept it, whatever. So we just accepted it like one does, which wasn't an issue either. So that goes on, like one does, and it was a mess from there. We weren't given any leeway of what is going to happen in September, what's going to happen in October. Were we going to be doing classes from home or anything? We weren't given anything of the sort. And what sort of annoys me, personally, and I know I'm probably going to sound really, really selfish here when I say this, is that you have university students who are studying for degrees, trying to, one step closer to getting their dream career job or whatever, or starting their career in whatever field it is that they need a degree for. But yet, lo and behold, the government were on about, we need to get primary school kids, we need to get secondary school kids in. And I get the fact that, if you get the primary school kids in, it means that the parents can then go back to work and everything. But university students were being completely forgotten about. Like, there was nothing for us. There was no government announcements going, just to let you know, university students, we are still thinking of you. We are trying to help you. There was nothing of the sort. It was just ridiculous. And I've had so many friends who have been screwed over by all the mess that the government had created around universities. It has got quite demoralising. That, again, lecturers don't know what they're doing. We don't know as students what we're doing. Like, I don't know when I'm due back at university. I don't know if I really don't know if I'm going to be back in February or if I'm going to be back in September. Because to me, my final graduation year, I will struggle if I do not get the chance to be in class 2-3 days a week in my actual classes. Because for me, I find it a lot better to be in the classes with my actual lectures face to face in the flesh with my classmates, because not just I get that academic benefit, but I get that social benefit that I do massively miss. And I'll tell you this, there is one thing, like literally, you can see my bed here. Jumping onto this chair, which is literally what I'm sitting on, it's not the same as spending 2 hours on the train waiting, spending 2 hours on a train journey to get down to East London. It's not the same. By all means, I get the fact that, university students, you are a bit more reliable in yourselves and a thing. But the thing is has there been any support for us? No, there hasn't been. And it's actually quite annoyed me, being truthfully honest. I'm not even, remotely happy. I'm quite annoyed, being truthfully honest. But, again, what am I meant to say? What am I meant to do? Again, universities, yet again, have taken the brunt of it. Students are getting annoyed, lecturers are getting annoyed, we're all getting annoyed, and the thing is, there has been no support. I've got friends of mine who are literally staying at home at the moment, yet they're being told, they've got to carry on paying their rent for their accommodation, because, even though we're in lockdown and everything. It's ridiculous. Where is their support for students? But again, we're nowhere to be seen. It's all well talking about, we got to get we got to get GCSEs done for all these school kids. We've got to get the SATs done. We've got to get all these exams done for all primary school and secondary school kids. But what about university students? Because, no disrespect here, but we are the ones closer to our careers. And that sounds really nasty. That sounds really sort of rude and self-centered. But ultimately, we are so close. I'm only less than 2.5 years away from starting my career. But ultimately, I do feel betrayed. I do feel let down by the government, because of where's the support for us university students? It's nowhere to be seen. Am I hoping that I'll be back in East London as soon as possible? Yes. Because for me, there is a difference. I have been using Microsoft Teams for the last term, and I'll tell you this, it is dreadful. It is utterly, utterly dreadful. And it's not just myself who knows it. My lecturers know how bad it is. But yet, ultimately, we're not allowed to use Zoom, even though to me Zoom is a far superior situation to use. But I don't really know anymore. I really don't know. It's a horrendous situation. I didn't really want to talk about 3 lots of lockdowns. But the thing is, my education at university, it has been affected. And have I struggled mentally because of the lack of social contact? Yes, I have. Because I'll admit here, I got jealous. I did get jealous in September of seeing people going to school, of going to college, etc. And I did. Because there was me who was having to jump from literally this bed, literally right here, into this chair. There's a difference between waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning, giving yourself 2 minutes to get yourself ready for a lecture. There is a difference. And I'll tell you this, I prefer spending 2 hours on doing a train journey to East London than not, personally. I've already accepted that this year is a mess of an academic year for me. However, why should I be forced to suffer my graduation? I don't want my graduation year to suffer any more than the next person. However, for me, if my graduation year, unfortunately even for me, I'm not even considering about deferring a year, because I'll be 23 then, in that case, of which I'll then be 24 by the time I finish my masters. It's too late. I don't want to be 24 doing my masters. I don't want to be 24 years old, graduating, doing my masters, because I'm not trying to be nasty when I say this, but I've spent the last 2.5 years at university as a uni student already. I'm over halfway there. By the time my academic year finishes in May, I'll be 3/4 of the way. Why should I defer for an extra year? Because it's just pathetic. It's just ridiculous. What's the word? Talking about YouTube content, I'm going to quickly talk about what's coming up on the channel over the next couple of days, weeks, etc. We have actually got some good stuff planned, in all fairness, that I do really hope that you will all enjoy. Some good tier maker stuff, so yeah, it should be great stuff. As always, if you are new to the channel, please feel free to like, share and subscribe for more good content, and I will be hoping to come back with another episode of the Andy Wilkins Podcast next week. So that is all from me. Thank you ever so much for tuning in today. The support, as always, is massively, massively appreciated. Ideally, by the time I get to, say, June, July time, I want to be, let's say, 250 subscribers, something like that. It doesn't sound like a realistically achievable goal, but it's one that I'm confident of regardless anyway. But that's all from me, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I do apologise if I've gone off on a little bit of a random at all. But yeah, that's all from me, folks, and I'll see you all in the next one. So see you soon, and bye-bye.